Happy Saturday, everybody. Welcome to the May 18th, 2024 version of the Founders Pod. I am one of your hosts, DM3 Dave Myers. I am joined by ARich, Akeem Richens. Rich, it's been a few weeks. We got family stuff going on, people on vacation, all kinds of stuff happening. What's going on, man? It's been a while.
DM3, it's been a while, but I'm glad that we're back, right? Getting to do
Yes.
what we do and get to do what we love. ARich, Akeem Richens. If you don't know us by now, please get to know us. We are the Built in Buffalo Network. DM3.
We tried to figure out what we were going to title the show because so much stuff that we haven't been able to have a chance to talk about together. So we're going to talk about the schedule. We're going to talk about Micah Hyde. We're going to talk about the wide receivers, and we're going to talk about the Bills' linebacking roster. Other stuff may pop in randomly here and there, depending on what you guys in the chat are talking about. And of course, once me and Akeem start talking about this positional groups with the wide receivers and linebackers, we're probably going to go down some rabbit holes. But I'm here for it. I know you guys are here for it. So, Rich, what do you want to talk about first? It's been about 3 days since the Bills' schedule came out. Do you think that's a good place to start?
Yeah, I think that's a lovely place to start. A lot of people are ups and arms about the schedule and where certain teams play on certain weeks. So let's get into it.
So first and foremost, before we break down the nuts and bolts of the schedule, are you a schedule release guy? Does it matter to you? Do you wish that the NFL would just drop it all at one time? Like, do you care? Like, where's it fall in line with you?
You know, I'm not a big schedule release guy. We have a good idea of our opponents well in advance. It's more about, okay, where are they placed? When is the bye week? So certain intricates with the schedule release I'm interested in, but the overall just of things, I'm not a big proponent of the schedule release. I know who we are. Let's get to work.
I mean, I understand too, the NFL is a business, right? So any chance they get, they're going to try to make money off of this stuff. The only thing that irritates me is like we get all these leaks. Like we find out a week before who's playing on the first Thursday night game. Then we find out who's playing on primetime game number 6 and Thursday night football. And then all of a sudden you get all this stuff released. So to me, I wish they would just drop it all. You know, pick a night. You want to have a show about it, cool. Show us all the cool matchups and stuff like that, but just drop it all at one time. So our guy Tasker, who does a lot of graphic design for us, actually made our own version of the schedule. It's a little bit more aesthetically pleasing to read. It's pretty easy to read. So instead of me screen sharing, I'm going to put it up on the screen. I think me and Akeem will break this down. We'll try to cut it up into like maybe quarters so that we can kind of get through it. I think good talking points are kind of maybe seeing what's the easy parts, the tough parts, and everything in between. So I feel really comfortable about week 1. Now, I don't know anything about how the Arizona Cardinals are going to end up their season in 2024, but I do like the game in Buffalo at 1:00. I think that's something that we haven't gotten accustomed to because the team's been good. We've been opening up on primetime. Last year, we opened up against Aaron Rodgers on 9/11. Year before that, it was against the defending Super Bowl champion Rams. So, Akeem, how do you feel about opening up? We'll start with week 1. How do you feel about opening up against the Cardinals?
I like the matchup. You know, obviously the Arizona Cardinals are an NFL team. They're not to be slept on. I believe they're an up and coming team now with a healthy Kyler Murray. They drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. and they got a number of other pieces. So I do not think that is an easy game where we should automatically think we're just going to roll in and trounce the Arizona Cardinals. But I do believe we go in and take that game seriously. I love the fact that it's a 1:00 game. It can be a nice stepping stone into what's to come later on, and maybe not even later on, 3 or 4 days later with the Miami Dolphins. So I like the week one matchup against the Cardinals.
Yeah, I do like the fact that they're not traveling for week 1, especially if it was on the West Coast or, even down south. But I'm glad they're going to be able to finish up training camp, finish up preseason, and they're going to be able to stay in Buffalo for that first game. And like you said, we don't know how good or bad the Arizona Cardinals are going to be. I feel like how their season ended last year. Yes, they did add some nice pieces in the draft. Like you said, they got Marvin Harrison. Kyler Murray is always a quarterback that you're going to have some excellent linebacker play to kind of spine, keep him, in check. But I do like the fact that it's not a division game. I like the fact that it's not against the 49ers, which was rumored out there a lot. In some of these other games like that. All right, so week 2, And this is where I start to have issues with the schedule. I don't have issues with the opponent. Okay. This is where I think the NFL kind of made a trade with the Miami Dolphins per se. The schedule makers made a trade because typically this happens where the Bills will play Miami early in the season in Miami, and then Miami will have to come to Buffalo later in the season, weeks 15, 16, 17. So I think the scheduler maker said, you know what? Let's make the Bills go to Miami early. But you know what? We'll let them play at night this time instead of having to play in the scorching sun at the Hard Rock Stadium. So in return, the Dolphins are coming to Buffalo in week 9, which I don't think any Dolphins fan is going to complain about playing in Buffalo in week 9. That's in November. There's not a ton of snow, maybe some rain, stuff like that. So how do you feel about the short turnaround from week 1? The season just starts, and then you got to go down to Miami 4 days later and play the Dolphins on Monday Night Football. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, I actually, when I saw this week 2 opponent Thursday night, 3 days later at Miami, I was a bit surprised. I was a bit surprised for the short turnaround, but the Buffalo Bills being that primetime team that the world now wants to see, and the Miami Dolphins being that up and coming team, or that team that is supposedly the next team up in terms of AFC East champs. I like the matchup on a Thursday night. We don't have it shouldn't be any weather issues in terms of the Buffalo Bills having to deal with the heat and guys getting heat strokes. So I like the game Thursday night. We are going to be well represented in Miami in early September, and I'm going to like my chances that game. So I'm not mad at where they placed each home and away game in the series against the Dolphins.
Yeah, they've even prompted something on all of the Miami social media, all of Miami local broadcasting news networks. Do not let the Buffalo Bills fans buy out half the stadium. Like it is a commonly known thing. Even all the big content creators that are Dolphins fans are saying we can't go to games because these people buy the tickets out when the schedule comes out. So I think a lot of people were thinking, well, it's a Thursday game. Maybe that's not going to have a lot of travel involved because it's not the weekend. No, Bills Mafia is going to show up and show out, and they're going to take over half the stadium like they typically do. So let's look at, and like you said, I don't mind the Thursday night game because it's early in the season coming. Now, if this was coming off a game like against maybe the 49ers or another tough game to open, I think that would be a tough stretch, 4 days, and stuff like that. But I feel like if you got to play the Dolphins early, you play them at night on Thursday, fine, cool. And travel from Buffalo to Miami is not that far. So I don't think that huge a deal. And then the Achilles heel to the Buffalo Bills, for whatever reason,
Kryptonite.
the Jacksonville Jaguars come to Buffalo week 3. For whatever reason, the Buffalo Bills have issues and have had issues with the Jacksonville Jaguars for, I feel like, the last 25 years. Say what you want about the Jaguars. I feel like they always have our number. Obviously, last year, the game over in London where the Bills had a ton of injuries in that game, and it was just probably one of the poorest I've seen this team play in a long time. What's your thoughts on week 3, Jacksonville, which looks to have a pretty loaded roster? Obviously, they have Mitch Morse, the return of Gabe Davis. So what's your thoughts on that?
I look forward to that Monday night game, and I think the schedule makers did an excellent job because the Jacksonville Jaguars has been a thorn in the Buffalo Bills side these last couple of years. Even when they had Urban Meyer, they found a way to beat the Buffalo Bills. And now last season, the London game, they found a way to beat the Buffalo Bills. So I'm low-key sick of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I'm ecstatic to play them on Monday night because we owe them an ass whipping. Hopefully it could come to fruition. So I like that Monday night game.
I agree with you 100%. We do owe them. All right, let's go into week 4, and then we'll kind of talk about the first quarter of the season. Sunday night football against the Baltimore Ravens. So before we talk about that, 3 of the first 4 games are on primetime.
3 straight.
How do you feel about 3 straight primetime games for the Bills? Because they only have 5 the whole season, which means for me, I don't like primetime games, to be honest with you. I know a lot of people like the pop and circumstance of being on the national spotlight. You have all day to get ready for the game and tailgate and stuff like that. I love 1 p.m. 1 p.m. Sunday football. That's me. So how do you feel about having those 3 straight primetime games?
It's different. It's different. You know, in the past, the Buffalo Bills, they would have 4 or 5 primetime games, but it'll be spread it out throughout the entire course of the season. But, you know, this one is 4 primetime games in the first 6 weeks. So it's like, okay, the masses, the NFL fan bases that's not Buffalo Bills fans are going to get a heavy dose of the Bills. So it's definitely interesting. I'm going to enjoy being on prime time just as much as I'm going to enjoy those 1 o'clock games later this season. And then we have San Francisco December 1st. And let's not forget, even though it's not a prime time game, that's a game of the week against the Kansas City Chiefs, I believe, in week 9. So that's going to be another game that's not considered a prime time game because it doesn't come on at 8 o'clock, but that's definitely a game of the week.
But that's going to be Jim Nantz and Tony Romo's standalone 4 o'clock game. So, all right. So looking at this stretch for the first 4 games, if I told you the Bills were 2-2 in this stretch, how would you feel?
So I have different feelings for it, right? In my mind, I'm saying 3-1. Anything less than 3-1 is unacceptable because we're the Buffalo Bills. We've been that Super Bowl contending team for a number of years now, and we should be ready for all challenges, especially with the type of quarterback and type of coach we have and the type of schedules we endured in the past. But my heart is telling me there's been a lot of moving parts for the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills, like it or not, we're not rebuilding, but we're reloading. We are a team in transition, a team that has a lot of new faces. So we come across this schedule after 4 games, 2-2. I would be okay with that. I would be okay with it.
I mean, I don't think I would be upset at it. I mean, our expectations for this team, and I think that's why Bills fans this offseason have been in such an uproar because the bar has been set, right? Every year seems like the bar gets higher and higher and higher and higher, especially since 2019 when they broke. I'm not going to say they broke the drought because they did that in 2017, but they earned their own playoff berth without some help and some other stuff that happened in 2017. So you go from 10 wins, then you go to 2020 and you get 13 wins, and then you go to 13 or 11 wins and 13 again. And it's like, they're constantly built 11 last year. They're constantly building and building and building. And I think the expectations have just gone through the roof where we were, even just 8 years ago, it was like, all right, are we going to be 500? So to me, if you're looking at this schedule, like you said, a lot of new transitional pieces that have to get used to playing, not just in the NFL, but under the Sean McDermott defensive scheme, under the Joe Brady offensive scheme. Here's my question to you. And we could do it now, or we could talk about it later on after we break down the second quarter of the season. If you're looking at this schedule, who has more of an advantage, the Bills' opponents or the Bills, based off of there's no film on Joe Brady's offense, right? You got a lot of new parts on defense for the Bills. I feel like with defense, we know what we're going to get. Even if we have new safeties, I think we know what we're going to get. We have the linebacking core that we're going to talk heavily about here in a minute. We know what's that. The defensive line, we know, I think, the guys that we have there. Do you think it's a disadvantage for the opposing teams because they have no idea what kind of offense the Bills are going to roll out? Because preseason-wise, they're not going to show anything. It's going to be vanilla as shit in preseason, like it has been the past few years. But what's your take on that? Am I a conspiracy theorist? Am I going too deep off the edge? Like, is it a good theory? What do you think?
So put the schedule back up right quick. Let me see something. So if we're looking at the Buffalo Bills schedule, a team week 1 like the Arizona Cardinals, that's a rebuilding team themselves. They're going through a transition themselves. I think that favors the Buffalo Bills. But when you look at the Miami Dolphins, you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, you look at the Baltimore Ravens, these teams, I know Jacksonville Jaguars has made some significant changes and pieces in terms of their wide receiver room and certain things, but those 3 teams, they have their core in place, and they had their core in place for a number of years now. We know Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews and that offense in the Baltimore Ravens. We know the type of defense they're going to play. We know the Jacksonville Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence and Etienne, how they're going to play. We know with the Miami Dolphins and Tua, and they got all the speedy receivers and running backs and added Odell Beckham. So their core is in place. In my opinion, the teams that we're going to face more than us, we're a team in transition. And I believe it's dependent on how Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills respond to the transition that they're in. This is no longer a team where it has a rookie quarterback in Josh Allen, and they surrounded their rookie quarterback with veteran pieces to speed up their progression for the rookie quarterback. It's now in a transition of veteran quarterback, superstar at quarterback, and now we have young players at the skill positions. Now we have new players at the skill positions, and we're going to hope that Josh Allen is the guy that can help progress the skill players around him, as opposed to the veteran presence he had as a rookie that was helping along his progression. So to answer that, it all depends on how the Buffalo Bills handle their transition they're in early on in the season.
I think it's twofold, because we can say that, well, no teams have film on Joe Brady in this offense, but we also have a lot of new parts that need to pick up the system. And how long is that transition going to take? Is it going to be just constantly a work in progress to figure out who your go-to guys are? Is it going to be the offensive line needs to gel? Is it going to be a straight running game one week? Is it going to be, a slug it out match where nothing's working and you have to adjust on the fly stuff? So it's easy to say that the Cardinals is a win, right? Because of who the Cardinals were last year. Like you said, it's easy to say that. It's easy to say that Josh Allen owns the Miami Dolphins. Well, you know what? It seems like every year they're getting closer and closer and closer to competing with the Bills for that AFC East. And a lot of the national media is saying that this is the year that they can overtake the Bills because of the transition that the Bills are in as far as the youth movement and stuff like that. So I'll put the schedule back up. Week 5, I could have sworn this game would have been a primetime game so they could push the Diggs narrative down our throats for a full week. Josh Allen's going into Houston. Oh, it's the battle of the former best friends. But no, it's a 1:00 game on a Sunday, which I actually like, because then we can get it out of the way early, and then we can watch the rest of the NFL the rest of the day. And then another primetime game, the New York Jets in New York on Monday Night Football. And then you got Tennessee, the Titans coming to Buffalo, and then you round out the first half, technically the first half, going to Seattle. So how do you feel about this stretch right here? These 4 games here, if the Bills after week 8 are 4-4, how are you feeling now?
4-4 after week 8, I'm a little concerned. Agreed. I would want, at worst, I'm thinking 5-3. Now, all these games are winnable, right? But we could have said that for years. All the games was winnable last year. It doesn't mean we was going to win them. So 5-3, in my opinion, is about where I would want to be. Now, of course, it's easier said than done, right? We have the transition between the players. We have transition with coaches. With Joe Brady, his first year being an offensive coordinator. We have Bob Babish, we can't forget, over there on the defensive side of the ball. Will he call plays? It might be a new defensive system. And even though everybody is in the same culture and the same system, how Sean McDermott may call plays may be different from how Bobby Babish called plays. So that's something we have to take into account as well. So it's a lot of transition from players to coaches to defense to offensive side of the ball that the Buffalo Bills, we hope, can adjust on the fly. And while they're adjusting, they're winning games doing so.
So the Spin brings up a good comment. And I was literally, because when I see, he says the Jets are coming off the Germany game right before they play the Bills. So I was going to bring that up because when I see the schedule come out, the first thing I look at is the travel from the opposing teams when they come to Buffalo. If there's teams coming off of buys when they play Buffalo, I look into all that stuff because it's little mini advantages for the Bills, right? Because it's a
Mhm.
long 17-week or 18-week grueling season, right? So if the Bills aren't 5-3 after week 8, I'm going to have pause for concern because there is a massively tough stretch coming. You got a division rival in Miami. I think Indianapolis is going to be on the upswing. I like what they've done a lot with the young quarterback and Anthony Richardson. And then the gauntlet starts. This is actually a gauntlet right here. Week 11, Kansas City. Yes, I know it's in Buffalo. Then you get your bye. Then the NFC champion, San Francisco 49ers, come to Buffalo. And then you fly out to LA to play the Rams, which I feel like is a really good football team.
Mhm.
And then you play the Lions, which I think everybody is putting them in contention for the NFC championship. So that if you're 4-4 after week 8, and then you hit this back stretch right here, that's tough, man. Even though you got Miami coming into your house, you still have a tough road. I mean,
Indianapolis Colts is a playoff team as well. You're talking about a tough stretch, and you're not even naming the 2 playoff teams before the tough stretch. So
exactly.
yeah,
That's what I'm saying. Like
Mhm.
exactly. Like the last. So I feel like week 6 against the Jets. I feel like that's a win. I feel like there's just a lot of stuff going against the Jets that with the primetime game, but they're coming off the Germany game. I feel like the beginning stretch of their schedule is not really good for them. I think it's tough. And I think the Bills, if they go in to Houston, yes, it is 3 consecutive road games. I get that, but New York they play in New Jersey. It's not really that far from Buffalo.
Mhm.
If they go into Houston and they beat the Texans, and that locker room is probably going to be feeling a certain way because Houston is a really good team. There's the whole Diggs angle to it. On top of the fact that you just played a week before that, you played Lamar Jackson and a team that was in the AFC Championship game last year. So I can't find in this schedule, I can't find any place where the NFL did the Bills any justice. Week 1, sure, maybe Arizona, and then playing the Patriots week 16 and week 18, sure. Who knows what Drake May and that team's going to look like by week 16? But there is no part of this schedule that's a layup to me. There's not like a 2 or 3 week space where it's a layup because the AFC East has gotten so much harder. With the Jets, I think are going to be competitive. The Dolphins have been competitive, and I think the Patriots are just trying to figure out, where Drake May fits into all that. So, what's your thoughts? We can kind of wrap a bow on the schedule. I don't want to spend the whole show on talking about the schedule because I know everybody else in the Bills content creating world has talked frontwards and backwards about the Bills schedule.
Overall, it seems as if things get harder every year. For the Buffalo Bills, when you lose players, you lose core players, the schedule gets tougher. Teams that weren't good before are now all of a sudden good and happen to be coincidentally on the schedule. So it's not going to be an easy road for the Buffalo Bills. It's never an easy road for us. It's never an easy road for the Bills and the Bills fans. But overall, I'm highly confident in what we can do as players, as coaches, defensively and offensively. So while I believe the schedule is tough, the schedule is tough for the Buffalo Bills, it is not something that they can't overcome. And if they can play sound fundamental football on the defensive and the offensive side and limit those turnovers and limit those mistakes, I think the Buffalo Bills will be in prime position to contend once again for that AFC championship. And I'm hoping that we can keep a level of consistency throughout the course of the season this year, even through transition, because last year and the year before, the Buffalo Bills, they always hit a low, right? They always hit a low. Last year it was with against the Jacksonville Jaguars and that stretch with the Denver Broncos and the Giants. Even though they won, they look horrible. A couple of years ago, they hit the low. So I would love to see a brand of football from the Buffalo Bills this season where they can maintain a high level of consistency throughout the course of the season.
Let me ask you this about last year. And again, this is how I go down rabbit holes because Akeem knows I'm about as random scatterbrained as the rest of them. How much last year we saw, I'll preface this, so just bear with me. There's a question at the end of this, I promise.
Mm-hmm.
how the season went. You mentioned the lulls last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the whole first half of the season was a lull. Would you agree on that?
Yeah.
Up to like
Mm-hmm.
maybe was it the Broncos game? Around there.
After the Broncos game.
Around
Yep.
there, I think that was where the whole lull was.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to do this, but how much of this, because we saw how the Ken Dorsey stuff, and then we saw how the offense changed when Joe Brady took over. How much does Stefan Diggs you think equate into this? Honest question. Honest question. How much do you think he equates into what was going on with this team the first 11 weeks of last year?
It's really
I'm not a
tough.
conspiracy theorist, but I'm just
No,
saying, like, because his target share went down. We
Mhm.
say that Joe Brady ran a different style offense. It wasn't depict on having a number one receiver, and it was just kind of getting the ball in space and using the running game. But he was traded, right?
Mhm.
We said he was never going to be traded. Everybody on this at the voluntary camp just looks like there's just a weight lifted from this roster. I don't know. I'm not trying to put that out into the universe, but do you think that there was a lot more that went into the Stefan Diggs stuff than we're ever going to find out about?
Obviously, I think there is, because he's no longer on the team. And
Yeah.
anytime a guy signs a contract, he's supposed to be playing for the Buffalo Bills right now in his new 4-year contract. So
Right.
to have 4 years for the Buffalo Bills, basically, obliterated because of I think the antics. I think overall, Stefan Diggs wore out his welcome because of the antics, because he wouldn't properly salute the Buffalo Bills and make it known that, okay, I'm a part of this team. This is our team. This is my team. It's about us. It was more of a standoffish answers he would give when talking about the Buffalo Bills. I don't know about my future, but I'm gonna continue to be me. What you mean you don't know about your future? You have a 4-year contract with the Bills.
Right.
So I think, honestly, it just came down to a point where the Buffalo Bills kind of got tired, and Stefan Diggs wore out his welcome, and that proceeded to a exit to the Houston Texans.
I agree. Hey, before we continue, let's handle some business. Please smash that like button wherever you're watching this. YouTube, please subscribe. Our YouTube channel is growing quite nicely. We have a great lineup of shows. It is the summer, the dull times, but we will have a full lineup. 7 shows. Everybody's locked in. We're getting all the days off and times off out of the way now. So we will have shows 7 days a week. So please subscribe, hit the bell. That way you know when not just the Founders Pod goes live, but when all of our other shows and videos hit the channel. Check out our channel. We're going to start uploading a lot more content as it comes through. We have a ton of great content creators. If you guys don't already know about all of them, please check us out. And always comment. I like the chat. And I'm going to put this out there, Akeem. Mm-hmm. So I watch a lot of podcasts on YouTube. Mm-hmm. I watch a ton. I want the Bills fans in our chat, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's X or YouTube. I want someone to name what our chat's going to be called. I want a name for our chat so that we can call them that, and then we can start getting into.
I like it.
So I live out in Sacramento, right? So I watch a lot of the local Sacramento Kings because it's the closest NBA team. I watch a lot of the Sacramento Kings coverage, and they have their live chats called the Chatty House. So something like that I want a fan to come up with that. I want the fans to go in and come up with that. So
nice.
I say that because I saw our president Lance in the comments dropping the smash the like button. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. Is this where we're going to learn a lot about Sean McDermott? Has there been any more of a season than this season where he's going to have to coach his ass off? Have you felt like going into any season so far under Sean McDermott? 2017, I think he got a pass and he got us in the playoffs. 2018, he gets a pass because it's Josh Allen's rookie season. 2019, the team starts to turn the corner. Bean starts stocking the pantry with skill position players. They make the playoffs. 2020, they get Stefan Diggs. The Bills explode on the scene. Josh Allen's the MVP finalist. They make the AFC Championship game. 2021, they hit that lull in the middle of the season, and they make the divisional round. 2022, same thing, divisional round. 2023, same thing, divisional round. And then we all know what happened last year, right? We thought in the middle of the season the Bills might not even make the playoffs, and they ended up winning their fourth consecutive AFC East title. So is this a season where he has the most pressure? And I'm not that guy that says Sean McDermott should be on the hot seat. I'm not that guy that thinks that Sean McDermott should not be the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. I absolutely think he does. But let me ask you again, and I will let you respond this time. Is Sean McDermott, are we going to learn a lot about Sean McDermott this year? What do you think?
You know what? I think so. I think this is the year where we get to learn about Sean McDermott, about his tier as a head coach. We're going to learn about how good he is as a head coach. The reason why I say that is because when he first came to the Buffalo Bills, he had Leslie Frazier, former head coach. He had a lot of experience in Brian Daboll, and a lot of experience in Rico Dennison. Even though he wasn't successful, he's been around the game a long time. He got a bunch of veteran coaches around him, being a first-time head coach, so he can trust those guys and those veteran leaderships and those experience, and he could hone in what he wanted to do as a head coach. Now that the team is transitioned, not only the team is transitioned, not only the players transition, coaches are in transition as well, right? So now you have the first year, take the interim tag off the offensive coordinator and Joe Brady, first year offensive coordinator. You have a first year defensive coordinator. You have a younger coaching staff around you. You don't have that associate head coach and Leslie Frazier in your back pocket like you had in the past. Sean McDermott, he's had seasons where he's won 10 games, 13 games, 11 games, 13 games, 11 games. And for some reason, he has not been in any conversations for coach of the year. Why is that? Right. So this is a year where if the Buffalo Bills do have success and they do get 11 or 12 or 13 wins, this can be a season where Sean McDermott can be up for coach of the year because he doesn't have that veteran presence next to him and that offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator. He has a lot of young guys around him, but the one common person is Sean McDermott. So if he does have success amongst everything that's in transition around him, then he can reach another notch of respectability around the NFL and for us as Buffalo Bills fans.
These are his guys. I mean, Bobby Babich has been here since 2017. He's been grooming Bobby Babich for this for 7 years, right? When he was an assistant DB's coach when he came in 2017, and he's progressed, and grown. And like you said, Joe Brady, yes, he was an offensive coordinator in Carolina, but let's be honest, that was a shit show in Carolina with what was going on with no talent and just head coaching, and the owner was a joke. And so this is, I think, where he draws a line in the sand and says, we're going to make the playoffs not just because we have Josh Allen, but we're going to make the playoffs because I'm going to coach the hell out of this team. There's still a ton of talent on this team. Let's not sugarcoat that at all. There's still a ton of talent on this team. We talk about the players that left. If you look at the players that left or were cut or released or left for other places, other destinations in free agency, I think the Bills have done some upgrading at some very key positions. And we're going to talk about linebacker here in a minute after we talk about the wide receivers. But you brought up an interesting point about Sean McDermott not ever being like in the top 5, at the NFL awards show at the end of the year for coach of the year. You think that has anything to do with who his quarterback is? Because if you look at Kevin Stefanski last year,
went 11-6.
But
He went 11-6.
who was his quarterback all season? Joe
Flacco.
Joe Flacco off the couch. Like, so that's always going to trump Sean McDermott having Josh Allen, right? To us, we're like, look at what they did in the middle of the season. They fired the offensive coordinator who we all were calling a scapegoat, and then they just ripped off 7 straight wins. Like, yes, they lost in the divisional round to the Chiefs again, but I feel like the Bills should have beat the Chiefs. And if you ask anybody, 99% of them are going to tell you that the Bills handed the Chiefs that game. Anyways, I don't know. I think that this is the year that we take a hard look at Sean McDermott, and we're going to find out a lot about who he is as a coach, because like you said, he doesn't have all the stable of guys that are there that he may or may not have leaned on in the past, like the Leslie Frazier's and the Brian Dayball's and stuff like that. I will say though, I really hope that what happened with Joe Brady in Carolina was just kind of an outlier, and it was a one-off, because we know what he did at LSU, right? We know what he was able to do at LSU and run an offense, right? Now, he doesn't have the horses that he had at LSU, but I think he also has Josh Allen, right? So if Joe Brady is the guy that we expect him to be and want him to be, seeing what that was, I think we're in for something special there. It may not happen right away, but I think defensively too, with Bobby Babich, I think we're going to learn a lot. Now, they need to figure out who the hell is calling plays, because I don't want that over this young defensive coordinator's head all season. Like people constantly asking him, hey, is that a Sean McDermott play? Did he call that into you, or was that something from you? So we could talk about that a little bit more when we talk about the linebackers.
So right quick, right? We spoke about Kevin Stefanski. He winning the Coach of the Year last year, right?
Yeah.
The year before, it was Brian Daboll. The New York Giants record was 9-7-1, and he won Coach of the Year. The year before that, it was Tennessee Titans coach Mike Vrabel. They went 12-5. So it's interesting to see, like, Sean McDermott had multiple 13-win seasons and he wasn't considered. So it may have to do with a lot with timing. Timing could be everything. It could be the storyline. And I say storyline because this would be a great storyline for Sean McDermott and the Buffalo Bills to win Coach of the Year. In transition, new coaches everywhere, new players everywhere, and still find a way to win the AFC East title. I think this is a year, if he has success, that he can bring home some individual hardware.
I agree too. I mean, they have a lot of the pieces that you typically would need, and this is why I don't think it's a retool. It's not a rebuild. It's a youth movement, because they have the quarterback. They have a good core on defense, right? They got Milano, they got Bernard, they got Ed Oliver, they got some other good pieces at corner. They got a really good offensive line. So I don't think it's going to be, and we'll wrap up this whole conversation about the 24 schedule. I don't think it's going to be something where it's going to be like last year, where it's like every other week we have no idea which team's showing up. I think you're going to find with this team, it's going to start out, and week after week, it's going to progressively get to a point where this team is a contender. And I firmly believe that they're going to win 12 games. I've been saying that for even before the schedule came out. So, and for all those people out there that complain about the schedule and they get mad about this and that, like, if you're that team, go win these games, right? If it's on the road, if it's at night, if it's 4 days rest, if it's in prime time, if it's Sunday at 1:00, if it's at Hard Rock Cafe with 200-degree heat, like, just go win the games. If you're that team, you're going to go win the games. So, all right. With that being said, we're going to move on. Before I play this video, Hakeem, if I say the name Micah Hyde, what immediate reaction, what comes to your mind? If I just say Micah Hyde?
Wall of Fame. Iron Man, leader, playmaker, culture fit, process guy. I can go on and on about the great Micah Hyde.
All right, I'm gonna play the clip because I don't know. It's made its way around everywhere. Facebook, X. It's been everywhere. So if you haven't seen it, I cut it down so it's not too long. It's about 20 seconds. But this is from Micah Hyde's press conference. This was actually a press conference devoted to his softball tournament or the softball game that he has in Buffalo every year.
Mhm.
But then he took time to answer questions from Bills media about his future. So I'll play that for you guys right now.
I'm 33 years old, man. I just want to have a healthy life, and my family is the most important thing to me. So at the same time, I do want to win a Super Bowl. That'd be pretty damn awesome. So we'll see. We'll take it day by day.
Is it Bills or retire, or is it you're open to anything?
It's Bills retire. Yeah, I'm not going anywhere else. Yeah, that's for sure.
Do we have any questions about culture in Buffalo after he says that? Because
Love that.
I dude, that like when I first saw that and I heard that, I was like, dude, that's like that made me feel so good to be a Bills fan because we're not used to like just the dedication. Now I understand we're talking about a 33-year-old safety who has neck concerns and he's getting up there in age and he's contemplating retirement, but still he doesn't want to go anywhere else. Like it's either Bills or retire. And I have this weird feeling that, and I don't know Micah Hyde, what his plans are after he's done with the NFL. I'm sure he's got young kids. I'm sure he wants to go right off into the sunset at some point and spend time with his family. But the other side of me thinks that, okay, if he signs a 1-year deal, Sean McDermott gets him back in the building for what could be something down the road as far as we've all called Micah Hyde a coach, on-field coach, right? This could lead to something. And I know that Micah Hyde and Sean McDermott have an amazing relationship outside of football. And Micah Hyde always praises Sean McDermott. We heard it all last year when all the rumblings were going around about if Sean McDermott should be fired and stuff like that. What's your thoughts on that? Like, just get him in the building, get him on the field. I don't think he'd see a ton of snaps. I think he'd be there to help the young guys, the Taylor Rapps and the Cole Bishops and stuff like that. What's your thoughts? What's your take on a possible Micah Hyde return?
Yes.
Even though the potential with his injury?
I mean, he said it himself. He's the one. He's the guy. He's the individual. He's prioritizing his family. He says he's 30 years old. He's prioritizing his health. He wants and understands that he wants to be there for his kids, and he wants to have that longevity to do so. But he also said it'll be pretty damn cool to win a Super Bowl. So him knowing his injury history, he is willing to come back. So if Micah Hyde himself is willing to come back, who am I to say, no, what, Micah? No, right. your neck. No, he know what he's dealing with. Right. So if Micah Hyde wants to come back, I would love to have him back. The dynamics have changed, right? The Bills, like we've been talking about, like we've been preaching, they're a team that's in a transition, and Micah Hyde is well aware of that. The Bills and Hyde knows that he is not the same player he once was because of the injury, because of Father Time. But because of the insertion of Taylor Rapp and Mike Edwards and Cole Bishop, who are guys that we think is going to take the bulk of the reps at the safety position, Micah Hyde can come back on a lesser role, right? He understands that he is not the guy that he once was, and we don't expect him to be that core player he used to be with the Buffalo Bills. They would have to communicate and have that understanding, like, okay, Micah, this is more of a rotational role. This is more of a depth piece, leader in the locker room type of presence he can provide in case, God forbid, some type of injury happens and he has to step up and play more time. He is, in my opinion, an emergency chess piece for the Buffalo Bills, right? Why do we say that? Because Taylor Rapp, he's had durability issues in the past, and we don't know how good he is. Mike Edwards, I like him a lot, but he's been a rotational player his entire career in the NFL. And Cole Bishop I love what he can do. I love his metrics, and I love his potential, but at the end of the day, he's a rookie, and he has to get accustomed to the speed. I don't want to see DeMar Hamlin out there. No disrespect, but I got to call a spade a spade. I don't want to see Cam Lewis out there. There's no disrespect. I got to call a spade, though. If those guys are out there, I'm concerned about the safety position. I would love to have Micah Hyde come in on a lesser role, be that force safety, be that emergency test piece if need be, and be able to be that locker room presence and coach the guys up on and off the field.
Agreed, 100%. Like I couldn't have said it any better. I agree with you with everything you said. So Roy Collins. So this is funny because this bleeds into my conspiracy theory. What I said earlier. Hyde also said he wants to win a Super Bowl, and I don't see a Super Bowl caliber team in Buffalo this year. That's what I said. Maybe Sean McDermott gets him back in the building and he becomes somewhat of a coach down the road. He said he wants to win a Super Bowl. He didn't say this year. He wants to win a Super Bowl, and I guarantee that's the team. The team that he wants to win one with is Buffalo.
Can I ask you a question? I like a rebuttal to that. When Patrick Mahomes, before coming into the season last year with Patrick Mahomes, and he had Rashee Rice and Skywalker and those guys, did we think that the Kansas City Chiefs was going to win a Super Bowl? We thought the Kansas City Chiefs was a team in transition. We thought the Kansas City Chiefs was a team that was on a small rebuild, and they got through their growing pains and frustrations and ended up winning and hoisting that Lombardi trophy. And I have to call a spade a spade. I didn't think that the Kansas City Chiefs was a Super Bowl contending team last year.
No.
And they won the Super Bowl. So who knows? Who knows?
Do you remember when the Kansas City Chiefs swapped out their entire offensive line and we all thought they were rebuilding? That was a couple of years ago, right? A couple off seasons ago, right? Because we all talked about how the Bills needed to retool their offensive line, and we all said, why can't they just model their offensive line after what Kansas City did? They're in a championship like window or win now mode, but they know what they need to do to take it to the next step. So 100%, Akeem, like the last 2 years, if you look at after Kansas City traded Tyreek Hill, I think everybody was like, oh, they're taking a step back. They're taking a step back. And then they didn't go all in on receiver and free agency or the draft. They drafted a couple guys, Sky Moore, okay, Rashee Rice, okay. But when you have core pieces like a head coach who's a Hall of Famer, a quarterback who's a Hall of Famer, and a tight end who's a Hall of Famer.
And a great defense.
So why isn't that a blueprint? That now I'm not saying the Travis Kelce's fall off the tree and everybody plucks them and picks them up and puts them on their roster, because that's Travis Kelce's one of one, so is Patrick Mahomes, but like I said earlier, you have a core of players here that is hungry and that wants to win. You got the quarterback. You got a good defense. You have a defensive-minded coach. You have a good offensive line. So, all right. Are we good with talking about Micah Hyde?
Yeah, I think so. I think excellent talking points.
I think the selfish part of me wants to see him play just because I like the guy so much. I think that he's a great role model for the younger players. I think he fits what the Buffalo culture is. He doesn't say much in the way of negative things about the team, the city, anything like that. And I just want to see him back out there because I know that he wanted to be out there a lot more with his injury history. And I know that it was a struggle for him to not be out there to help this team win, similar to what Matt Milano went through last year. So on that note, we're going to talk about wide receivers. And I think this is where me and Akeem are going to actually disagree on some stuff. So this may be must-see TV here. So these are my wide receiver roster locks right here. Say what you want. Go ahead and grill me in the comments or in the comments in the live chat. I think that obviously Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, and yes, I think that Marquez Valdez-Scantling is MVS is a roster lock. Akeem, what say you?
So right quick, right?
I'll put it back up here for you. There you go.
So right quick, a Spin. Steve Spagnuolo, he's been around the league a very long time, Spin. He's been a head coach at least, I know, once, maybe twice. So he's in one of those periods where, he's a long-time coach and he's a long-time retreat coach. And now he's in a position where it's benefiting the Kansas City Chiefs that he's their defensive coordinator, being a retreat coach. Nobody really wants to hire him. Maybe he may get it again one more time, but I highly doubt it. So that's why he has a long tenure with the Kansas City Chiefs. But moving on.
You could win a Super Bowl every year as a defensive coordinator. Why wouldn't you do that instead of failing at it? We see how, and I don't want to cut you off, but
no, go ahead.
We see how these offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, they take these jobs in the NFL right now if you can't do it in 2 years, you're gone. Like the last 2 years of your contract are voided. And we're seeing that more and more and more. So that's why all these teams are in this win now mode with go get the quarterback, go get the players around them, spend all the money. And he like Akeem said, he's been a head coach before and he hasn't had success. So
right.
all right.
But
I'll put my nifty graphic back up there for you.
I like it. Yes,
for you
sir,
to
I
look
like it.
at.
So these 4 DM3s roster locks. So quick story. I asked DM3 when I seen this graphic. I'm like, MVS a roster lock? I'm like, are you sure? He was like, yes, I think, in my opinion, he's a lock. And then I had to think about it and do some research on MVS. I'm like, you know what? Why does DM3 have MVS as a lock? Because I don't have this kid as a lock. But when I read how he got signed, going to Josh Allen's house, eating dinner, get to have the face-to-face conversation with Josh Allen before the deal is done. Oh, yes, he is a roster lock. So I agree.
When you sent me that message, how fast did I respond?
Yeah, hey,
I don't know, 3 seconds, 4 seconds?
Maybe.
So how do you feel now? You feel a little bit better about it? I feel too, the way that they gave him a nice structured incentive based, which he probably isn't going to hit like the 55, 65 receptions and the yards. They structured him and layered a very nice contract for him. And I'm going to go in more details why I think that he's a lock here in a minute. But so that's just my 4. You guys in the chat, you might not agree. You might disagree. You might think that someone on this list of Mac Hollins, Chase Claypool, Andy Isabella, is that Justin Shorter? I'm not sure. I should put out an APB for Justin Shorter.
Yeah, Justin Shorter and KJ Hamler. And Tyrell Shavers is not in this graphic. I seen somebody ask about him. So, but yeah.
I know it's Justin Shorter. I don't think I've ever seen him play before. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there. Okay. Akeem, how many receivers, and we have so much time to do our roster construction, which we typically do with how many receivers are they going to keep, blah, blah, blah. Right now on May 18th, how many receivers do you think the Bills are going to keep?
6.
Okay. All right. So before I look at everybody, what they're putting in there in the chat, and this is a good exercise for the chat. You guys put your 6 in there, 5 in there, how many ever you think that the Bills are going to keep. So, all right, here's the rest. So everybody is saying, and I'm going to give you my, I think 6 too. Here's my guys that I don't think any of these 5 right here are locks. And everybody wants to say Mac Hollins is a lock because of special teams. If he was a lock, I don't think they would have signed Chase Claypool, if I'm being honest. I know Chase Claypool doesn't do special teams, but if you're talking about body type, physicality, size, contested catch, 50-50 ball, he's exactly what Mac Hollins is minus special teams. Do we agree on that?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Andy Isabella, I feel out of all these guys, maybe KJ Hamler, Andy Isabella, it would be a guy that would be a special teams guy, right? What do you think?
Yeah, he would
return
probably he'll probably be making immediate impact as a return guy if he was to make the team.
All right, and then so then you got Justin Shorter, who's the anomaly here. We have no idea what to expect from him, and then you have KJ Hamler. So of these 5, if you think we're keeping 6, which of these 2 guys is it that's going to give you 6?
So first of all, I want to put my dark horse out here because I really like the guy and I want to put him in my top 6, and he probably will. Who knows what happens when the pads go on, when camp comes in, when blue and whites and the preseason comes in, everybody's going to be fighting for their spots. But right now, the other 2 guys I got making the Bills 53-man roster is Mac Hollins and Chase Claypool. Those are my other 2 guys.
Get out of my head.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I've done a lot of research on who Mac Hollins is as a person. The dude is like, he is the process. If you go and look at any of his stuff on social media, anything like that, Mac Hollins is process through and through. He's process 100%. He's culture. He is what the Bills would want in that locker room, even keeled, a guy that's going to show up on Sunday and you're going to tell him to be a gunner and he's going to give you everything he has as a gunner, right? Jake Kumaro 2.0. I feel like with Chase Claypool, this is it for him.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody's got to be in his ear saying, look, dude, this is your fourth team in 4 years. This is it for you, man. Like, you're going to be in the XFL or the Canadian Football League or out of the league if you can't make this roster. Because if he doesn't make the Bills roster, is somebody else going to pick him up knowing that this is the Bills wide receiving roster? Like, everybody's saying it's one of the worst constructed wide receiving rooms in the NFL, and you can't make that roster as wide receiver 5 or 6. So maybe the 9 touchdowns in his rookie year, I don't think that was just random. I really don't. And if you go back and you look at those catches, some were really nice, contested, where it was a nice athletic, his body size, where he went out he outworked the guys that he was going against. So let me ask you this. The reasoning behind MVS for me making the roster as a lock, because the Bills signed Chase Claypool and we looked at him and we're like, size, right? The Bills have a type. Brandon Beane has a type that he's trying to go after, right? Keon Coleman, the Bills have a type, right? Look at the size of Keon Coleman, 6'3", 6'4", big body. Mac Hollins, 6'3", 6'4", big body blocker. And then you look at Marquez Valdez-Scantling,
6'3".
6'3". But what does he bring that those other guys don't?
Speed, the ability to stretch the field.
Right. So he gives you a little bit of – now, I'm not saying he doesn't have drop issues, and I'm not saying that he's going to have 50 to 60 receptions. I think it's a nice 30, 40 reception, go long, go deep, contested catch stuff. I think it's a nice blend of what Beane wants in that big body, and you get the speed as well, on top of the fact that he's got the Super Bowl winning experience. He played for the Chiefs. He played with Mahomes. So I'm not saying that Beane's trying to steal a playbook from Andy Reid and Brett Veach, but I think he makes the roster, and I think he makes a decent impact on this team, honestly.
And not only that, and I could agree, because MVS does add a different dimension than the other guys, being 6'3", 205 plus pounds, and being able to run a 4.3 740. I do think he adds a different dimension, and I think that this overall group, while people can say we leave a lot to be desired. While people say we could leave a lot to be desired, this is a big wide receiver room, right? Keon Coleman, 6'3", 6'3". He's physical at the point of attack. He's able to do a lot of things physically and in the red zone with contested catches. Mac Hollins is 6'4". Chase Claypool is 6'4", ran a 4.42, another real a physical specimen at receiver. And then you have Khalil Shakir and Curtis Samuel, who are not your bigger guys, but they are excellent players that's run after the catch players, excellent yak guys that has the speed to take a distance. So this overall room, if this room was to make the team, if these 6 was to make the team, I think it would be an imposing group for defensive backs that's playing the Buffalo Bills this season.
So let me ask you this. I'm going down another rabbit hole with how you've seen Brandon Beane go and sign Chase Claypool, go and sign MVS. Do you think that there was a plan after Stefan Diggs? So, and let me break this down this way. So do you think that there was like a meeting where Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott in the front office was like, all right, we need to figure out this Stefan Diggs situation. Do we want to take the hit now, or do we want to take the hit next year? Because I believe it was coming either this season, offseason, or next offseason. I think it was coming either way. Do you think that there was an actual plan for what they were going to do when Stefan Diggs was gone and those 165 targets walked out the door? Because they knew they weren't re-signing Gabe Davis. So do you think that this is him trying to just and pardon my French, but throw some shit at the wall right now and hoping that some of it sticks? Because Mac Hollins wasn't the answer, and they signed him early. He was a guy that's a special team signing through and through. That's a Medikevich, Saron Neal through and through signing replacement for those guys that are no longer on the team to lead special teams. So
I think it's a copycat league, right? And I think Brandon Beane likes to follow the trend of people or teams or a particular team that has success and want to mimic that success, right? Think about the Kansas City Chiefs a couple of years ago when they lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the Super Bowl, and the Buffalo Bills, I believe, lost to the Chiefs. They went ahead and got defensive ends. They went ahead and got multiple pass rushers to try to combat the Kansas City Chiefs in terms of taking down Patrick Mahomes, right? So they're going to go get pass rushers. They saw the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a lot of success in that Super Bowl getting to Patrick Mahomes, and because they was able to disrupt them, they ultimately got the win. What did the Buffalo Bills do? They tried to mimic that. Was they successful as they wanted to be? Probably not, right? Now, what happened this year? What happened this last year? They just saw Patrick Mahomes win a Super Bowl with Skywalker and Rashee Rice and MVS and Hardman, McCole Hardman, that receiver, right? So what's going on in Brandon Beane's mind right now? Okay, Patrick Mahomes is probably the best, but Josh Allen is not far off. Right. This guy Stefan Diggs is getting on my is not the guy. He's wearing out his welcome. We don't have the money necessary to make necessary moves this year anyway. So let's go ahead and take our chances. Let's get rid of a Diggs who wore out his welcome, and let's see if our quarterback and our organization can mimic the success that the Kansas City Chiefs just had, and not having a premier number one wide receiver. And in the meantime, we're going to get we're going to get a better receiving core than the Kansas City Chiefs had last year. I think overall, this group of receivers is better than Kansas City Chiefs group of receivers that won the Super Bowl last year.
I think it was better even before they signed MVS.
Better. So being that is like, okay, we're not that bad. We're not great, but we're better than the Kansas City Chiefs that won the Super Bowl last year. Let's go ahead and see what happens this year. I do believe we're going to be competitive this year. And depending on what happens this year, now next year in 2025, we have some money. We can be players in free agency if need be, and attack that number one wide receiver position if need be, depending on what happens this year. So I think this year is more of a copycat kind of thing based on what happened with the Chiefs and the lack of flexibility the Buffalo Bills have with the cap situation, and they want to see what happens, and who knows if we can mimic them or not.
So KC won with their defense. That is a very accurate statement.
Mm-hmm.
Very accurate statement. I think you're right too, and I think Bills fans need to be prepared for a heavy dose of James Cook this year and Ray Davis. I think there's going to be a huge increase in uptick. We know that Sean McDermott, when Brian Daboll was here, wanted to run the ball, and Brian Daboll was like, "No, I have this stallion in Josh Allen, and I'm going to throw the ball 45 times a game." And we all collectively bitched about it for seemingly 2 or 3 or 4 years about run the damn ball like it's working. Why are you not running the ball? Because Brian Daboll just wanted to attack. And Sean McDermott wants to control the game. He wants to control the line of scrimmage. So I think this year you might see Josh Allen's stats come down. I think you see an uptick in the running game because you have James Cook, who's entering year 3. Not saying that they can't pass if they want to, because I think Josh Allen, like you just said, is that guy that is going to make receivers be open. He's now able to throw receivers open. I feel like he's going to be able to throw receivers open. And the tall body guys are the, oh shit, we need contested catch guys because we can't run the ball. So we're going to have to scheme to pass this week or whatever's going on, adjustments, whatever. But I feel like you're going to get a heavy dose of James Cook and Ray Davis and a lot less of what we saw the first part of last season, because when Joe Brady took over, now I know there's more to his playbook than what we saw last year. I think it was a continuation of Dorsey, and he implemented a few of the things that he wanted to do. I think we get the full gambit of the Dorsey playbook, and I think that is a lot of control the clock and keep your offense on the field. And how do you do that? You sustain drives by running the ball, getting first downs, getting the third downs. Like, I don't know. I feel like this might be a year, and we have to be okay with Josh Allen not having the massive stats to back up the fact that he is still an exceptional quarterback, and he's a top 3, and he's not 3 quarterback in the NFL. I think we have to get used to it. What do you think about what the offense might look like? Again, we have no idea. I'm just speculating based off of the fact that if Brandon Beane ultimately wanted to get a number 1 receiver from another team, I feel like the way that he is with contracts and structuring and how smart he is and how he's done deals before, he would have gone out and got one. He could have gone out and got a T. Higgins.
Really?
Or DK. I feel like he could have if he wanted to.
Okay.
I don't care about the money. There's ways to go get T. Higgins and restructure everything to where it's in the future. Like you said, we're going to have money next year. And if T. Higgins wants to be a number 1, you don't think he'd come to Buffalo instead of staying in Cincinnati where he's clearly number 2 and they're not trying to pay him? And if Brandon Beane picks up the phone and says, you know what, T, we'll bring you here. This year, it's going to be team friendly, but next year in 26 and 27 and 28, maybe we'll load you up and you'll be wide receiver 1. I'm not saying T. Higgins specifically. I just grabbed a player. I'm saying if Brandon Beane really wanted to, I feel like he could have gotten another receiver that's an alpha. I feel like you said this offense is being structured to cater to what Joe Brady wants to do. And that is run the football, control the clock, have guys that get the yak yards and can get open and get separation. And that's it. Control what you can control. And we don't need to have Josh chuck the ball 70 yards when you can get all these guys that are underneath guys. All the Khalil Shakir, underneath guy. Dalton Kincaid, underneath guy. Curtis Samuel, underneath guy. Like,
so are you concerned? So because you're talking about underneath now, and you talk about Josh Allen numbers possibly be going down, is that because, and I want to get everybody in the chess perspective as well, is that because of the players? Or is that because of Joe Brady and his offense and his play calls? Because he does want to stick to the run. He does want to have that identity to have a run game. He will run the ball on first down and second down. And he doesn't hesitate to run the ball. But at the same time, when he throws the ball short. He throws the ball behind the line of scrimmage. He throws the ball in these short intermediate zones where players, offensive skill players, they have to make a guy miss. Otherwise, it's going to be a minimal game. Do you have any concerns with Joe Brady's offense being the reason why Josh Allen numbers down, the way he constructs his offense, as opposed to the players, and it be more of a run first type of offense for the Buffalo Bills?
Well, no, because if you look at the last half of the season when Joe Brady took over, Josh Allen's passing stats, besides the Eagles game where he went off, he had over 300 yards. I think he had like 85 yards rushing. He had the 2 rushing touchdowns. Look at how much they used Josh inside the red zone for the rushing touchdowns. He ended the season with 15 rushing touchdowns. I just feel like Joe Brady wants to control the line of scrimmage. He wants to control the time of possession. And I think he's somewhat in the mindset with Sean McDermott where we are going to bully you into a point where you can't stop us. The Dallas game, like how many times have we seen that done to the Bills? We're going to run the ball. We're going to run it down your throat and you can't stop it. The Bills ran the same play like 6 or 7 times in a row where they would have James Cook just hop to the other side. They'd pitch the ball to him. They even brought in Ty Johnson and did the exact same thing. And that was that was not a Ken Dorsey thing. That was a Joe Brady offensive play call. So, to me, I don't. Do I want to see Josh Allen at the top in completion percentage and touchdowns and total touchdowns and yards and all that? Yes, but what I care about more is who wins the football games. Are the Bills winning because of the way that Joe Brady is calling the plays on offense? Are we being successful because James Cook has 1,400 yards, or because Josh Allen has 4,500 yards and we have to get in shootouts with everybody. You see what I'm saying? Like if we play the Kansas City Chiefs or the San Francisco 49ers or the Baltimore Ravens and we have 40 minutes of time of possession and only score 24 points but win the game, I will take that every week. I'll take that every week over Josh Allen throwing for 350 and 2 tush pushes, touchdowns, and we're playing to keep up with what Lamar's doing in the fourth quarter. Like, no.
See, my only fear with the Joe Brady offense and short and intermediate, having that short and intermediate game or implement that type of system is the mistakes that can possibly happen. The Buffalo Bills are prone to making a lot of mistakes, and the more plays that they have offensively is the higher the opportunity it can lead to a mistake. So do the Buffalo Bills have the explosive players? Do they have enough explosive players to score and take it to the house in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plays? Because I noticed that the Buffalo Bills last season against the Kansas City Chiefs, they probably constructed their offense a certain way to combat how the Kansas City defense was playing them. But when it was time to score points, they struggled. They made that mistake. They did not score the necessary points. So do you have any concerns with the Joe Brady offense against an above average team scoring points?
No.
None.
Because I think we saw most of it last year, and now he gets to implement with new players this year. Yes, Diggs is gone.
Mm-hmm.
But so let me ask you this, all right?
Mm-hmm.
So my answer to that is no. I feel like the players that we have at receiver, there's not an alpha male. Okay, fine, wide receiver. But I do feel like there's a ton of targets that are here that are going to make up the 230, 240 targets at Diggs. You don't have a Diggs, but I think we upgraded over Gabe Davis. I absolutely think we've upgraded, whether you pick it to be Khalil Shakir or you pick it to be Curtis Samuel, whoever you say wide receiver 2 is, because we don't know who wide receiver 1 is. I think it's going to be by committee. When Josh Allen's completion percentage went up, it was because of Stefan Diggs being able to get open, right? So it gave him a lot of confidence. We saw Josh Allen be more pinpoint accurate because of the underneath stuff. I said when Josh Allen was drafted, and you know this because we did a show back in 2018, that you cannot fix accuracy. You can't fix it. You can't. Either you can be accurate or you can't. How you can fix a completion percentage is by giving the quarterback passes and routes that completion rate is a lot higher, where we saw with Khalil Shakir, right? 89% of the passes thrown to Khalil Shakir were completed last year from Josh. So I see that Brandon Beane has gotten guys that can get run after the catch. That's why I don't think playing the dink and dunk style, not saying that Keon Coleman can't go long, because he can. And we talked about Curtis Samuel can play on the outside really well. I just think he was put into a box with Washington. So, and I think the same goes for Khalil Shakir. We automatically pencil him in the slot. So I don't know. I feel like maybe they don't need to have a number 1 receiver. And I saw somebody in the comments.
Now how much of not having an alpha number 1 receiver has to do with Stefan Diggs? Maybe the Buffalo Bills are saying, you know what? We having this diva number 1 receiver is nice, and the production is nice, but when things don't go well, things happen in the locker room. There's outbursts on the sidelines, right? We know that alpha number 1 wide receivers, when they're not getting the ball, they can be troublesome. They can be divas. We see it with Stefan Diggs. We've seen it with the Philadelphia Eagles and AJ Brown last season. Maybe the Buffalo Bills are saying, you know what? We don't want that alpha receiver right now. We want to build that chemistry and camaraderie in the locker room. If mistakes happen, we will take those mistakes as a team. There will be none of this going on with our receivers. All our receivers are young, and they want to play for Josh Allen, and they understand who they are. So maybe they don't want to deal with the alpha number 1 wide receiver for culture reasons and process reasons, and we'll get back to that in 2025.
I just think that we need to use, going back to the running game, utilize James Cook while you have him, because I don't know if he's going to be here after his contract's up.
Right.
And I think we all really enjoy James Cook. Does he need to catch the ball when he's wide open, run down the sideline into the end zone? Yes. He has some drop issues. Yes, he does.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that can be addressed and corrected easily. All right. The chat's going bananas, by the way. Like, you guys on YouTube are going nuts. People are telling me that I'm crazy. I need to do homework.
I love
people saying Akeem's crazy. People talking about other people in here. So at the end of the day, Michael, I was going to put your comment up telling me I need to do my homework, but then I read that you put this on there, so I'll take it easy on you. You're right. At the end of the day, we're just trying to have a show, and we're trying to talk about the Bills, and we're trying to make sense of all of it, just like you guys are. So,
and we all have opinions at the end of the day. We all have our different opinions and interpretations on what we think about the Buffalo Bills. But at the end of the day, we all want to see one thing, and that's us hoist the Lombardi Trophy. We just got different avenues on the way we should go about doing that.
All right, this biggest question mark for the Bills is injuries on defense. I 100% agree. I didn't even want to talk about it because I don't want to throw that out into the universe. We haven't had a year in a while where there's been no defensive injuries, whether it's Tre'Davious White, whether it's Von Miller, Micah Hyde, Matt Milano. Like, I just want to get through a season where we can have all of our starters relatively healthy or healthy all the way. That's all I want. So, all right, we're going to talk about linebackers.
And right quick, DM3, we have 463 people in the chat right now. We have 7 likes. The math isn't mathing. The ratio is outrageous. Right. The ratio.
We got a bunch of likes on YouTube. I don't think that StreamYard knows how to do the math.
Okay, that's not right. Okay, because I was about to say.
But still, smash the like.
Smash that like button, baby.
Hit subscribe. Hit the bell. Share it. Do whatever you got to do. Put us out there so that we can get more engagement every week. Because this season is going to be absolutely insane with content from Built in Buffalo. So we're going to talk about linebackers to kind of close the show.
Yep.
Akeem and myself, we always do roster construction videos towards training camp, towards the preseason. So we won't give away too much, but we're going to give it.
You okay there, buddy?
Let me get some water.
Yeah. Drink up, man. We're going to talk about the linebackers, and I'm glad we're going to talk about the linebackers. This has been, we've seen what happened last year against the Kansas City Chiefs, where AJ Klein had to come from his vacation and cover Travis Kelce, right? So Brandon Beane is doing everything he could possible not to make that happen again. He does not want to see AJ Klein on the field, and I can't be mad at him. So let's talk about the linebackers.
I forgot we had these in here, man.
Yeah,
All right, so I'll preface this by saying I think that Brandon Beane has done a hell of a job with the finances available to add some quality depth to the linebacking room, which we know Sean McDermott likes to use a ton of linebackers. Terrell Dotson earned a contract, very well deserved, undrafted free agent, came in here, worked his butt off. Was here for 4 years.
4 years.
He got a nice contract. What he's done with Terrell Bernard. Now, I'm not taking any credit away from Terrell Bernard. He's worked his ass off too. But I think at this point last year, we were having a completely different conversation about who middle linebacker was going to be. Were we not? We were all pissed off. We weren't signing Bobby Wagner's and all these other guys. And like we were having all these conversations. And then here we are, Terrell Bernard, and I'm going to put the graphic up there. He led all linebackers in the NFL with turnovers in 2023 with 3 fumble recoveries and 3 interceptions. So that's a testament not just to him, but that's a testament to being in a scheme that fits his athleticism, because I was one that thought having Terrell Bernard as our middle linebacker that we essentially had 2 Matt Milanos. Now, in theory, that's not a bad thing to have, but that's also it's kind of an undersized thing to have. I think we all love Matt Milano, right? We can all agree that Matt Milano, the all-pro Matt Milano, is an exceptional linebacker, and the team is completely different when he's not playing. But there are some areas, specifically size, that he lacks in. Is he good coverage linebacker? Absolutely. Can he make the splash plays that we hounded Tremaine Edmonds for 4 years? Of course. But I was concerned about how they were going to be paired when we were told that Terrell Bernard was going to be the starting middle linebacker going into the season, because I thought Dorian Williams had some sort of a shot at it. Now it looks like he's a role-playing guy. So I'll put the linebacking roster up there. I didn't put a lot of the practice squad guys on here, guys that were undrafted free agents and things like that, because I think this is going to be your bread and butter that's going to be fighting for to make the 53 right here. Obviously, starting at the top, we got Milano, Terrell Bernard, Dorian Williams, Nicholas Morrow, which I love that signing. Deion Jones, I love that signing. Akeem, I'll let you say this one since we practiced before we came on. Oh, you're muted.
Edefon Ulufashio.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty privy. I'm pretty privy. Not 100%, but I'm pretty privy.
I'm gonna give it to you. And then Balen Spector. I almost left Balen Spector off the graphic because I forgot about him, and that shame on me, because I feel like he's a fine piece to this roster that is underrated, and he came in last year and he filled in admirably when called upon. So, ARich, how do you feel about this roster compared to last year? Heading into the season, how do you feel?
I love it. I think this is the strongest roster group beyond the quarterback position the Buffalo Bills have on their depth chart. You know, the linebackers, Matt Milano, as long as he can come back healthy, I don't think he'll miss a beat. You know, he'll have to get back up to speed and have to get his conditioning and have to get his play speed back to normal. Well, once he get back to normal, I think it'll take a couple of games. It will be exciting to see the all-pro Matt Milano that he was in 2022. His all-pro season, he had 99 tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 3 interceptions. One of the best cover linebackers in the NFL. According to PFF, he had an 82 cover grade. Now you have a Terrell Bernard, who none of us knew this time last year. We like you said, we wanted Bobby Wagner. We wanted all these different linebackers. We wanted to draft a linebacker, but Brandon Beane and the Buffalo Bills brass, they trusted a Terrell Bernard, and he was an amazing acquisition, being a 3rd round pick. He was viewed as a 5th round pick and a reach when the Buffalo Bills initially selected him, and he's just one of those players that he plays with his hair on fire. And I think that Brandon Beane does a great job foreseeing the future of the NFL a little bit, knowing and understanding that the game is forever transitioning year by year, and being that it's becoming more of a passing league, and being that smaller receivers are having more success and tight ends are becoming receivers, it's good to have a guy like a Terrell Bernard, who may be lighter in the frame than a Terrell Edmonds, but has the IQ, has the instinctive ability, has the athletic ability, and has the coverage ability to keep up with this modern NFL and what they want to do in transition to the passing game. So overall, I love our starters, and I love the depth pieces behind our starters in Deion Jones, in Nicholas Morrow, in Balen Spector. I think it's going to be very hard to make that linebacking group 53-man roster, and whoever doesn't make the 53-man roster is going to be very hard to put somebody on the practice squad and get away with it. Whoever's end up on that practice squad is gone from the Buffalo Bills roster. So I hope the Buffalo Bills choose wisely.
With Nicholas Morrow and the Deion Jones, I like the signings, not because I think they're going to come in here and they're going to set the world on fire, but you have a ton of reps here. You have a ton of starts for those guys. They played starting caliber football on defenses that were pretty damn good for a few years. So you don't have to worry about getting the AJ Kleins and stuff like that. And you can bring a rookie along if you want to. And I'm going to say this right now. This is May 18th. Do not sleep on Dorian Williams.
Yes, I like him a lot too.
Do not sleep on this man. I'm telling you,
I like him a lot.
He's the athlete that when they drafted him last year, I said that he is going to need, he is untapped potential that is going to need to be molded like some clay that you're molding into a sculpture or whatever. I feel like he is going to find his way into getting some playing time this year. There was a comment, I think it was from Spin. How many linebackers do you think? Oh, before we do that, Michael says Terrell has brains unlike the Mike linebacker that we got rid of. What was the biggest hang up on Tremaine Edmunds? He had all the traits, he had all the talent, but he could not figure out where to go on 50% of the plays. Would you say that's accurate? It looked like he was lost in the sauce.
It looked like it. So what it looked like to me with Tremaine Edmunds, especially when he's playing the better quarterbacks in the NFL, because when you're playing the better quarterbacks, being a middle linebacker, it's a chess match between middle linebacker and quarterback. And I always felt that Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers and the upper echelon quarterbacks usually had their way with Tremaine Edmunds. And I don't think, even though I think Bernard's a young player and he's going to have his struggles here and there as well, I don't think that they can do that. They could just pick on him that like they picked on Tremaine Edmunds because of his IQ and instinctiveness.
So I know, like I've said it 15 times on the show, we're going to do a roster construction show, position group by position group. Do you think the Bills, how many linebackers do you think they keep? I'll put the graphic back up there because this is going to be a hard group to slim down. And I always say this with position groups because we have to remember, when the Bills are constructing their roster, it's not going to be which are the best 5 linebackers. It's going to be, how do these guys help us on defense? Can they contribute on special teams? And how many offensive linemen are we going to keep if we keep an extra linebacker? How many defensive linemen are we going to keep if we keep 6 wide receivers? So I always throw that out there because linebackers can be competing with a guy that can be a gunner on this team or a guy that's the 8th guy on the defensive line. You know what I'm saying?
So right now, when I'm looking at this, and it's very hard, I'm going to speak to the perfect scenario for the Buffalo Bills. Perfect scenario, the Bills keep 5 linebackers: Matt Milano, Terrell Bernard, Dorian Williams, Nicholas Morrow, and Edifon Olafashio. Deion Jones gets cut, and we sneak Bill Inspector on the practice squad. So that's what I'm thinking for the Buffalo Bills at the linebacking core right now.
I tend to agree with you, but I think they're going to keep 6.
Think they're going to keep 6? Okay, I wouldn't be opposed.
I think that Deion Jones makes his way onto the roster because you're one injury away from one of these guys, and we saw that Milano. And look, I've gotten yelled at on social media for saying that Matt Milano is injury prone because the season before last he played almost every game. But he missed a ton of time last year. Who knows where he's going to be coming back from this broken bone injury and what the time looks like. Everybody says he's on track to be ready for training camp. And all accounts from Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane say that he looks like he's on track. But Terrell Bernard also was injured his rookie season and had some injury concerns last year. So are you going to go with a rookie that hasn't played any snaps in the NFL? Or are you going to go with 2 guys that have starts in the NFL and a bunch of starts and reps under their wing? Now, these guys also have to come in and play at a high level to be considered for this roster because you have Milano and Williams, who could have been both all-pros last year. I feel like if they both were healthy and played all season, because I'll tell you what, if Bernard and Milano are healthy all season, watch out. Like it's going to be nice to watch that defense. And what they can do. But I think they go with 6. Again, I don't know how special teams. Dorian Williams played a bunch of special teams last year, and we know how much that means to Sean McDermott and how they construct the roster. So, any other thoughts on the linebackers and linebacking core?
Matt Milano's 29 this year. He's a free agent in 3 years after the 2026 season. Does he survive his entire contract?
I think it gets reworked again.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
See what the money looks like next year. If there's, I feel like at some point Brandon Beane's going to try to get a massive edge defender because I don't think that Groot. Yes, we picked up his 5th-year option. Vaughn's under contract for 1 more year, but he's not cutting it. AJ Epinesa, and then these other guys that we signed in the offseason. I just feel like he wants that dominant pass rusher,
Mhm.
and edge rushers are becoming the second highest paid player on the team, close with the wide receivers. But you look at, like what Joey Bosa and all these other guys are getting out there for money right now. So I feel like at some point Bean's going to go after a big edge defender for what he wanted Vaughn to be, but unfortunately because of injury, Vaughn, it's not panned out. So
Right. I like it. I can see it.
I think that's all we got. In case anybody else in the chat wants to talk about anything else, again, the YouTube chat's been bananas today. I appreciate you guys. Facebook's been going bananas. I want you guys to put out there. I want a name for our chat, which is an accumulation of X, Facebook, and YouTube. Most of the chat's been coming in through YouTube. Give us a name. We'll put it out there on social media so you guys can have some sort of say on what we do on the show. I want to put some questionnaires out there for you guys to give us some topics going into the slower months of the season, or the off season. So, ARich, you got anything else you want to touch on before we head out for this weekend?
No, bro. Appreciate everybody for tuning in to Founders Pod this week. Amazing show. Glad to be back with myself, DM3. We both was out the last couple of weeks attending to our personal matters. Stay tuned next week. Next week, same time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with the Founders Pod. There's a lot of things happening and brewing behind the scenes for the Built in Buffalo team, Built in Buffalo Network. So be on the lookout. A lot of news coming very soon, and a lot of great podcasts coming your way this weekend throughout the whole course of the season.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it any better. Thank you to everybody that commented. Thank you to everybody that supports what we do. You like the show and you're sharing it and doing all that stuff. And the chat was phenomenal tonight. You guys were going back and forth, and I love it. And ultimately for me, I want to grow engagement with the Bills fans because I want you guys to also have another avenue. I know there's a ton of other shows out there that you guys can go and watch and interact with, but to have you guys come to our platform, interact with us and interact with each other, and we start growing our own steady following of people that follow what Akeem and me do. It's great. I love it. So with that being said, you guys have a good rest of your weekend. We will see you right back here on the Founders Pod next Saturday at 9:00. As always, go Bills and have a good night.
Go Bills.